This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon and we are going to today talk about the dark side of self-development. Maybe even shed some light on the dark side. Bad joke. That's a great joke, just so you know. Now, before we move on, we do have the Mood Prep Intensive. I've mentioned it a few times before. It is in Canberra on the 9th and 10th of March. It is coming up. There are still early bird tickets available. If you're interested to know more about what's involved in the day, go to the website and check it out, davenixon.com/seminars, or jump on Mood Prep Online on Facebook and find out more there. Otherwise, getting into the dark side of self-development. This is something that I found very interesting pretty recently, looking at this idea of people wanting to get better. One of the patterns that I have seen is this desire to get better without looking at our shortcomings, right? And our shortcomings, another way to think about it, may potentially be our shadow. So not the things like, I'm not very good at this. Like the actual parts of our psychology, the deeper parts of our conscious or unconscious that are operating out of our awareness, our blind spots. And this is why it's so beneficial to go into depth with reading and study and finding people and finding educational platforms, be that a webinar, be that a classroom of some sort, to be able to really map out ways to go deeper and find out the areas of us where we're playing small, where we're pushing to the shadows, all of that, so we can actually by ourselves, but with other people, but we have to do the work, go down that path and really work on being a better person, right? Developing self. But the thing about developing self is that we aren't able to develop self without seeing our dark side, without seeing our shadow. And so this is the idea of waking up to the shadow, right? We have this persona, our personality, that we play out each day, and there's shadows to that each one of us may have. We may have blind spots, and this is the beautiful thing about something like integral theory, because in that you can see there's 4 quadrants, but there's a lot more. But the 4 quadrants, out of those 4, there's often a blind spot for us, and that could be the individual subjective. That's me. It could be the objective of somebody else. It could be maybe it's a collective objective. There's a whole variation of that, and it's quite a unique tool. But the power of developing self is being able to see our shadows. Now, here's the thing. If we don't want to see them, if we have some sort of frame running that's like, I know that, and I'm working on that, or anything along those lines, if we're not open to seeing that, then we aren't able to develop self. We aren't able to expand our awareness. We aren't able to really get out of our own way in order to really make sure that we are truly giving for this one life that we're here. We're too busy protecting ourselves. It's often a protection, maybe not for some people, but it can often be a protective mechanism to be able to still feed this higher frame of I'm a good person, I'm a good guy, I'm a good girl, I'm really sweet, I'm really nice, I would never do that. Mum says I'm a sweet guy, and I got to keep that sort of, snag. That's what I got called, sensitive new age guy. So this, it's something that I really had to work through and understand that, like I mentioned on previous podcasts. But this whole nice attitude isn't always nice. Go back to listen to Fridays, a couple of podcasts ago. I definitely went into that. But it's about waking up to the shadows, to the parts of a personality that we're lying about, and this is almost this deceiving of self, where we run a story in our mind for so fucking long that somebody else's perspective of that, it's like, well, they see something different to what we see. I'm a good person. That person says that I do this or that, and I would never do that. And in the back of the mind, there's this little chatter of like, you fucking know damn well that you do that for that. But if you admit it, then fuck me. Like, that's one of the things about saying sorry, right? You're actually admitting this part of you is inherently wrong, or maybe bad, or maybe faulty, or anything along those lines. And so saying sorry is the admitted. It's letting go, and it's fucking powerful, mind you, but it's the same way of admitting these darker parts of our psychology, the shadows, and seeing it. What happens is that when we admit it, we have to own it. And a lot of people don't want to own that shit because it just fucking floods them with emotion. It floods them with fear, because what happens is they start to lose control, not realizing that they never had control. And this is the powerful thing, right? That the darker parts of us hold our secrets to develop, right? This is, I think, a big key conversation around this idea of vulnerability. Now, vulnerability is strength. Now, vulnerability isn't being emotional. Let's pass that fucking shit off, right? Being emotional is a ridiculous concept. Every single one of us is emotional. We're an emotional being, right? Now, some people have learnt to repress those emotions or suppress those emotions, maybe even oppress those emotions. But the reality is that we're emotional beings. Like, we experience happiness. Happiness is a fucking emotion, right? This is the thing about it, is that we go emotional, we think crying, we think teary, we think sad. Oh, that person's emotional. Well, what if someone's happy all the time? Right? It's the same thing as being sad all the time. They're both just emotions that person is running really dominantly. And is that, which one's bad, which one's good? It's like, it's all dependent, right? We know that, the duality of it all. But the vulnerability is strength. And when we can move into vulnerability and learn to actually connect with what our emotions are telling us, because they're usually pointing at things out there in the world, or expectations that we had, or thoughts that we had that were meant to be like, that aren't matching up with the actual reality. So if we suppress them, we can really push ourselves into danger. Whereas vulnerability is also, when it's connected with letting go, or maybe let's use the word surrender, because the interesting thing around surrender is that surrender is often seen as a submit, but that's not true. Right? You're not submitting, you're not rolling on your back. When you surrender, you are surrendering to the frames, to the expectations of how you think it's meant to be, right? To all the bullshit, the drama that you hated in your past that you're bringing with you now. When you let go and surrender to actually what's going on, you gain strength, because you now have the power to choose how to respond in the fucking moment, rather than carrying all this baggage, right? So this is the thing. It's like, if you are unable at this stage in your development to really learn to let go, to surrender, to be vulnerable, then you aren't going to be able to develop the self until you let go of the bullshit that maybe you're still carrying with you. And if you're not prepared to see that, because you don't want to be vulnerable, because, if I don't show emotion, then I'm strong. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of dead people that will say the same thing. And I'm not, it's hard. It's fucking hard saying that. It's hard seeing it. It's hard hearing it. But the reality is that sort of attitude is not strong. Asking for help is a sign of strength. Being real, being honest, being human. When we be human, we allow everyone else to step into that space as well. This is a powerful thing about when we surrender. It's not surrendering to some sort of government or any bullshit like that. It is simply surrendering to the shit that surrendering to the moment and let going of the shit that no longer serves. And in doing that, we become vulnerable, because we let go of all the things that we think keep us safe, not realizing that they're keeping us in danger, because they're keeping us linked to the past. And when we can really see that, and this is the beauty of it all, when we can see that, we do surrender to the moment, and we want to self-develop, and we're prepared to see the darker parts of our personality, right? Realizing and knowing that they're not us, that they're things that we play out of fear of losing love, right? Out of fear of not being safe, being in danger, out of all sorts of things associated with that. When we realize that, and we still choose to surrender, then that's when we develop. We start to see the parts of us that no longer serve. And in doing so, we start to move into asking questions. But the key difference, we're not asking questions to try and develop to save face, to get approval. We're asking questions wanting to know the answer, and prepared for whatever arises, and trusting ourselves to deal with it when it does. And on that note, team, I am done. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you found this podcast beneficial. If you did, it would mean the world to me if you'd pass it on to someone else that you think would also find it beneficial. If you haven't already, then jump on Facebook, search Mood Prep Online, join the group conversation there. Otherwise, that's it. That's me for now. I'm done. Until tomorrow, peace and pizza. You know the deal. Kick the day in dick. Kick today hard in the dick. And slay the dragon. I'll see you guys soon.
To be everything at once, be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.